Hey, what's up guys? In the last video I mentioned that I might do another video kind of talking about religion or Jesus exactly and God, belief in God, and how the video I uploaded before showed some people talking about an idea that made no sense. So whether or not the video before was real, so to speak, it doesn't really matter, as either way there have been so many wars apparently based on religion, and in fact they say that most wars are based on race or religion. So I feel it's necessary to touch upon the subject and show where a lot of people are mistaken. And actually, the funny thing is, there might be one thing that a lot of people don't know, which I'll now mention, is that even considering these wars, or so to speak terrorist bombings that people think are based on radical Islamists or whatever they call them, fanatics, actually, if this is true and if these people do it for religious reasons, well, they themselves are mistaken and they don't know anything about the religion they believe in, and perhaps they're being used by people who want to achieve other goals and who have other interests and maybe other gripes, such as maybe different economic gripes or some different economical, social, political, or socio-economic reason. So the thing is that a lot of people don't know perhaps that the one that they so follow, let's say first of all, speaking about those who are called radical Islamists, if such people really do exist, well, that person was also Christian, and in fact his parents were Christian, and this person is of course the Prophet Muhammad. And in fact what he spoke about was a way to have peace, because he wanted to unite the different Arabic people or Arabic regions, so to speak, so they stop fighting between each other. And that's the thing. And even for people who have studied the Quran, they'll see that he's mentioned just how Jesus is mentioned, in fact less times than Jesus is mentioned. Now whether or not it matters who is mentioned more times, it's not the point, but it matters that they're both mentioned in the same religious text as prophets. So for Christians to believe radical Islamists are out to get them, or so to speak, well, that might be nonsense, or maybe it's true and then it's nonsense that the radical Islamists believe that their religion is better and whatever they call Allah is the one God and so on. And before I shed knowledge that I have from elsewhere, even about that I was thinking, isn't it funny that the word for their God is Allah? Then why in English we use the word all, which is basically the first three letters for everything? And for even people who don't believe in God, well, they do mention that they maybe don't believe that God is this one person doing everything and above everything and knowing everything and controlling everything, let's say. But as described in the Bible, you know, that he's omniscient and omnipotent, knowing everything and having all powers, being able to do everything. But they do say that they do believe there is something, you know, that balances out the world. They say usually they believe in energy. Well, that's kind of saying like they believe in everything, like the all, you know, the universe, the one thing that unites us all, and that's basically it. And yeah, before I touch even to those people subject, let's just say what I got mentioned I would speak about in this video, staying true to what I think is important, and also staying true to the viewers, as you guys, you know, as I did mention, I would make perhaps another video. I also said I would make several videos perhaps a week. And it's that, yeah, this video surfaced around Easter. I said, is this a coincidence? The video which I previously uploaded, the last video, showing what apparently is Bill Gates speaking in the Pentagon about some God gene in 2005, and that there's a way to combat this God gene using the coronavirus and other viruses to make people less religiously fanatic, as they have tested this, let's say, this experiment, and they have seen that it apparently works. That suddenly if you speak about God to a religious person after you've given them some kind of vaccine via these viruses to make it more effective, either via the flu or the coronavirus, some part in the brain doesn't activate that usually in a religious person is very active, which is usually around the frontal area. And yeah, I said, either way, if this is true, it's terrible that these people think that way. But considering the situation, I decided to make this video anyway, because even if this video is a fake and it was maybe, I saw some article on some website saying some guy made this video to make a fake documentary years ago, and he got money on Kickstarter around 10,000, and then the documentary was never made. There was another synchronicity that this video surfaced basically apparently after the date that this person had already spoken about that such a video existed. And to be honest, whether or not this is fake or not is not the topic. The topic of this video is not Bill Gates and the coronavirus, to be honest. It's more about the fact that even before the coronavirus, the world wasn't that great, and still isn't that great. And I find it funny or pathetic in a way how people act as if this coronavirus is this first most terrible thing, and all these old people saying they have never seen such a thing. Well, just because they haven't seen it perhaps in their neighborhood doesn't mean it's not a topic that everyone should be concerned with, nor does it mean that what is not in their neighborhood or their country cannot get to them or doesn't affect them indirectly, or in other words, directly. So what about all the wars, What about all the people starving around the world? What about the fact that it is claimed irrigation, or let's say using a big water source on one side of the world can of course give golf courts to people on the other side of the world, for example perhaps Las Vegas, that leaves people even in India or other countries without water. I mean, the world is a whole and it's all connected. So whether or not you believe in the universe or God, usually anybody agrees that yeah, the world exists and that everything is connected, collateral damage exists. And I make this video to maybe shed a bit of light on these people who are maybe too concerned about their own religion and their own God, thinking they should even go to war for that reason. And maybe about those people who don't believe in God, to understand that this doesn't matter if they don't believe in God, because this video doesn't say you have to believe in God, and it doesn't say the world that you have to believe in God in order to be a good person, or think about helping those in need, or maybe not being too greedy and such. And thirdly, of course, this video is also about those who do believe in God, who perhaps want more light shed, and anyone else who's interested in these topics really, where I'll discuss a bit about not only just Jesus but the other religions, what they have in common, as far as I know, of course, or as far as I see relevant, because of course I won't be able to say everything I know in this video. So let me begin. So the first thing is, what do of course all religions have in common for some people is that they speak about a God that knows everything and can do anything. They usually have some prophet, and where a lot of people get mistaken is that they think maybe their religion is better, or they don't understand that generally speaking all religions speak about love. But of course each prophet maybe doesn't mention the word love in that way always. For example, as it says in the Bible, Jesus spoke about the 10 Commandments as well, and how to honor your neighbor, respect the neighbor, don't want what is of your neighbor, things like that, which is more about respecting one's property and and respecting the person himself. As for the word love, it's also very much expressed through forgiveness, and the interesting thing as well is that he said the world would remain for those who are calm, especially the heavenly realm. And of course we all know what we mean by heaven, and that's also very interesting, because it seems we're living in a world nowadays where people are ready to go in the army just for money, fighting for wars that they don't believe in, or even if they do believe in these wars, they think they're helping their own country when actually they're maybe just making some politicians richer, as nobody's probably threatening their state. So why would you go to war unless you just want to steal, so to speak, what's in another country? Of course I want to mention that, then again, speaking about how the universe as a whole, countries should do their best to share resources just as much as is needed for everyone because all people are connected, and it can only do good for them if more people are able to carry out their jobs because they need a certain resource or certain technology that this country has. And even if they're not religious, if they're religious, of course, they will say it was sent by God, the ideas were sent by God, we're all God's children, so He would want us to share and make this world best for all of us. But even if they don't believe in God, well, it's logical. The more you help another, you also help yourself. For this person would be better able to do their job, and so on. Let's say, and you'll have something to benefit, of course, directly or indirectly from that person, putting it shortly. And so that's a very interesting thing about Jesus, right? So for these religious fanatics, if they have to be stopped, even if they're the Christian ones, because Christian ones maybe also have done, people who are too fanatic about that idea have been manipulated, some aggressive terrorist attacks. Well, considering if this video is true, if other people think such a video has some logic, well, that's based on some false assumption that you can fight such a thing with a vaccine which should exterminate almost the whole world with some virus and just take the risk. I mean, that's just ludicrous. And the fact is that maybe if these people have their religion better explained to them, they won't be so quick to fight because they realize their religion is always of peace and love. He has never said destroy the enemy or spread this religion because it is the one way. And if it did say such a thing, it's just lost in translation. Because every religion speaks about one God, but this one God is always the same one. And now to speak about something interesting as well for another religion, perhaps another of the biggest ones, Buddhism, is that this was more religion, of course, spoke about love as well, but there were several Buddhas, but Mahatma Buddha, the one that people mostly mention, the recent one, is that he was more concerned about the mind, the peace of the mind. He didn't exactly call it happiness, it was more even a word of nirvana or bliss. And for him, heaven was not this thing where you go once you're dead, it was more a state of mind. And to sum it up best I can is how this French monk basically explained it in a lecture more or less. And it was somebody who was a monk for around 4 years, and then he practiced for 4 years teaching the practices to people who wanted to become monks or to understand what it was about in a workshop that was several weeks long. He basically explained it with some pictures, and the first picture was of basically elephants walking. The second picture showed different animals, plants and so on, and eventually there was lights, and the last picture was just the sky and a field. And he basically explained this is how the mind generally is when people get over stressed or overly angry and they don't seek to self-control themselves via breathing and conscious meditation constantly. They can fall in a state of anger or turmoil, which represents basically elephants as if they're trampling in their mind, it's just heavy thumping and this kind of anger. And he said that these were 7 levels. In order to bring yourself from that level to the next, that he would bring these people through speaking and quiet meditation, visualization, so they understand these different states of mind to become more and more calm, and eventually even understand the positive energy, which we call, some people, happiness, others call it bliss. Buddhists call it also, Hindus, nirvana, and so on. And so this was a difference, perhaps you can say, in this religion. And to speak, of course, about other religions, I don't want to go too in depth about each one, but to say generally what they have in common, the big difference is, even if this video is actually true, is real, of Bill Gates from 2005, and even if it's not, there remains a risk that other such people exist that think that way, that you need to use drugs or some other violent means to stop potentially other religious fanatics doing a terrorist attack on a church or whatever. As we have even recently seen, there were some attacks on mosques, so it's very relevant that I make this video. And I want to say is that another religion, for example Hinduism, the interesting thing is that perhaps it is less touched by this terrorist or anti-terrorist movement because they had many gods. And what the Hindus explain is that they had around 36 billion gods until the Western world came and said, no, you have to believe in one God. For whenever they asked them the question, which God do you believe in, they always had a different picture. Sometimes it was of a relative or a very distant relative or someone of that region. And eventually people realized that each one of them is considered as a god somewhat. They never said to themselves that they are gods, but so they still saw this difference between barely human and godlike or godly. But this was a big confusion. So of course, even for these people, they of course maybe use the word God, or we translate it badly, that they maybe had a god of war or others for every specific thing, kind of like how the Greek gods were very warlike. And this is a bit of a misuse of the word God. For the word God is supposed to be reserved for the God, as we use it in English, whether it's Allah or whatever word people want to say, whether it's Amon Ra, as the Egyptians would say, is the sun god, but that is the god that gives light and life. And yeah, just to say, this is it. All religions are about peace. They're not about war. They're not about explaining which god is better than the other. They're not about dissecting their different saints into better or worse. Perhaps we can say that different gods or saints below the Almighty God, they're there to give a better connection to the people, to the knowledge, and perhaps power or magic that can be a miracle to save them if they so need it, or if it will be so granted to them. At least that's the idea, that different gods and different saints are for different things, have proven themselves with different healing powers and so on. So that's what I have to say, and generally as the message of this video, and specifically for those people who say they don't believe in God, who say even the Egyptians worshipped the sun and they thought the sun was God, so they called it Amon Ra. Well, I recently discovered some interesting knowledge several months ago that there was a word, even Madara, which was for the combination of the Earth and every planet's system. So it is not the sunlight energy, it is basically the energy of any planet, which they called Madara. And then the sun, that it eventually was known Jesus, the name is Isa, and even in the Arabic word they call Jesus Isa. So they also believed, while they were also Muslim, in this son of God, of the combination of Ra, the sunlight, and from earth came, and it is this one godly creature that was human, that was Jesus. They called Isa. And this is interesting because for three reasons. First, for people who don't believe in God, they have a kind of scientific or also historical explanation for this word Jesus, that is not a made-up figure. Secondly, it's interesting, of course, for the people who believe religion can be used for war and has to be fought over another religion to take over perhaps regions, is that you can argue that they're mistaken, of course, for, as we understood, even the Muslims perhaps wouldn't have known that Muhammad was actually Christian. His parents were Christian, and he was a prophet and someone who spoke about peace. So it was never his intention that their religion be used as for war, either Christianity or, you know, the religion of Islam and Muslims, so to speak. And yeah, thirdly, it is interesting to see that this person, Jesus, for those who don't believe in God, yeah, specifically not only existed, but is explained by these words, which were in a religion even before Christianity, which was Tangrism. And Tangrism's cross is basically a balanced cross, and it symbolizes exactly this. The circle around it symbolizes this general Madara, so to speak, the balance of every planet. And the cross is equal on four sides in length. One is symbolizing air, earth, fire, and water. And in this cross is also shown the general idea that there was something encompassing around it, another circle or some empty space, which is this energy flowing, the sunlight energy, or the Egyptian god Amon Ra, or the sun. So we realize that religion is also quite scientific. And that is also why, actually, how can I say, people's fear might be justified if they see such a video and they think it's real, or if this video is real, and it can be justified. They can easily manipulate people to think they have to use some vaccine to destroy some God gene, because the belief in God has twisted people and made them do maybe certain things for their religion that shouldn't be done. But at the same time, the God is explained that it is all powerful, all knowing, so he can't be destroyed with some vaccine, or no one can destroy God. And then, of course, those who are not religious will ask, but what does God want? Why are there the wars? And this is where I want to finish my video, because those even who are not religious or religious, they all wonder, if God is there, why is he not doing anything? And then people can say, for the fact that there are wars and all these bad things happening, there must be no God, because why would a creator all powerful let such atrocities happen? Well, you see, I don't want to sound like I'm towards a particular religion stronger than another, but I will tell you what this shows about this one God. Just as every other God in Greek mythology is defined, it shows that this one God respects people's free will and waits until people discover the way to rule their own world together. And an example for this is that it's a historical example that's in the Bible as well, is that when Jesus was on the Mount Sinai and the devil came to Jesus and said, you can rule over these people and basically control them and they will be your slaves, Jesus said, I do not show them this magic or give them, for example, wine or food out of thin air because I want to manipulate or rule over them. I want to show them how to help each other, that I help them, so I pass it on. I teach them to help each other and teach them how to live in harmony together. And that's, by the way, is another word, the word harmony, that even those who don't believe so much in these godlike saints or specific gods or the one God so strongly and so literally, they still believe in the word harmony. They believe that the idea of any energetic healing or balancing or meditation beyond what Buddhism explains is for peace or calmness or even bliss is actually harmony for the body as well. And this is the idea that we're all acting like the coronavirus came out of nowhere, what's going on in the world, but the world hasn't been fine for a long time. And this one God seems to not want to intervene until people learn their lessons. For if God just did like this and tomorrow people woke up and there were no wars, people might remember the day that there were wars and they were worse off, so those people will be happy. But there are other people who might remember the day where they were stealing and had sadistic thoughts and tyranny made them happy and they thought this is why they were richer or why they were surviving. These people might think, oh my God, I should do a war again. Oh my God, of course, said ironically from these people, since they obviously don't even understand God's idea. So people have to learn their lessons themselves. God might change his or her view, let's say, but for now it's clear this is the situation. And that's why I also said in my first video, it's not about saying who's guilty about this virus in order to punish these people or to have a war, for this can lead to more people dead and hurt. It's about dealing with the current situation as best we can to solve it. However, logically speaking, it seems that for such situations, justice needs to also be served. And indeed, if some people created this virus, and if it wasn't an accident or it wasn't something that they didn't expect to happen, it's proven indeed that this was their intention, well, of course, the legal system will pursue them. So, I mean, we have a good system, but apparently it's not good enough to solve famine and stop wars and stop viruses. So apart from perhaps the way there is continuous peace for the fear of a nuclear war, for if one person throws a nuclear bomb, others will too, and for the United Nations, as there's alliance of the Big Five and so on. To be honest, there doesn't seem to be a very consistent other way to maintain the peace and perhaps balance in the world of resources and to make sure everybody is living in peace and, not in famine. And these are the basic things in human rights. Next come course, there are political and social rights, which they need to have the right to self-determination. For example, women not getting bombed when they're going to school, such as in Afghanistan and other countries, and letting them pursue their career as they want. And then thirdly, of course, are the obligations on every state to meet the needs of people, their socio-economic rights. And it doesn't even mention taxes. Nearly all countries have signed such obligations, saying that if they agree, it is their responsibility, for they have this power to manage people. Of course, they live in some kind of democracy or not, it's some kind of dictatorial kingdom, monarchy or other, but they agree that they will make sure their people aren't starving and aren't living in turmoil and insecurity, and that they have a roof over their heads. But even in the most developed states, that doesn't function quite well, and you see some irregularities happening. However, that's maybe for another video if you want to go further in depth. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe. If enough people subscribe, I might decide to make even more videos to keep this channel going. And yeah, just click a like if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't like it. If you don't click anything, I don't mind. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.